Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? For far too long, people around the world have been prevented from living the life they want. The constant threat of either a good or a bad afterlife, and the connection of that threat with things they do right now when they're alive, has prevented them from self-actualization, from lives they enjoy, from doing things that they would do without this belief. It has motivated them to fight against people they would not have fought without this belief. That is why today we would prefer a world in which there is no belief in an afterlife. What is this belief? It includes the idea that after death, a person lives on in some sort of form of existence, right? This might include heaven, hell, the idea that your spirit lives on and lives close to God, right? The idea of being rewarded or punished in the afterlife for good or sinful acts on earth is connected to this belief, and we also think that the idea that your time in the afterlife will be spent with a deity or people or the souls of people is also part of this debate, right? I think this narrative is also often proposed by religion, right? A key component of religions is essentially what they propose as an afterlife. I'll pick up one individual definition.
You're assuming that what religion stops you from doing are good things. Keeping in mind in most instances these things are objectively immoral, why wouldn't you want people to abstain from them?
Could you rephrase that point? I can understand the end of that.
Keeping in mind that most things that religion prevents you from doing are objectively immoral, why wouldn't you have people abstaining from them and not doing them?
Okay, we don't think premarital sex is objectively immoral, 1. 2, I'm just defining the definition here, like, come on. Okay, so we think we bring in 3 arguments in this debate. 1, how people change. 2, how religions change. And 3, how we achieve better conflict on our side of the house. We think this narrative has often been promoted by religious groups, as I told you. Let's get into the first argument here. So people's lives. We claim that without this belief in the afterlife, people's lives would be significantly better. We see this because 1, death would be a deadline. Right now, people are told they have to wait to do certain things in the afterlife. Or they're told that they shouldn't do certain things at all, and the rewards in the afterlife will outweigh those harms, right? This happens in Christianity again, with premarital sex. They're told, don't enjoy life for now, because you will enjoy endless pleasure next to God, right? Why is this important? Because we think people would be liberated from this belief, right? They would understand that life is more precious, that they realize that life is short, and they would spend it doing what they want, what directly makes them happy, right? They can have all the premarital sex they want, wear everything they want, love who they want. We understand we're not completely removing religions from the world. We do understand that we're limiting their impact by limiting the incentive they provide to people to not do these things, right? We also accept that this is all within the bounds of the societies that these people exist in. Secondly, we say, no thank you, that good deeds would be better. 1, in some cases we just have more of them, right? Right now people are often complacent to say God will take care of everyone in the afterlife because they're virtuous if they're poor, for example. Why is this important? Because you see, people won't take that when we don't have this belief of the afterlife, right? Some things are just wrong, not because a specific religious belief system tells you they are, but because you think they are wrong, right? They understand that certain inequalities have to change. You can't be complacent with the promise of in an afterlife. We think we'll have less of, I've done my good deed for the day so I go to heaven and I can go home and sleep, right? We say, second of all, the type of good is better, right? We see the perception that one is doing an action that will give you something in the afterlife. This exchange, you're doing God's work for God's gifts later on when you die, is somewhat like contingent on the belief of the afterlife. We see that 1, good can't mean whatever some people want it to mean on our side of the house, right? Televangelists can't tell you that donating to them will give you an afterlife in heaven. Secondly, we say you take good deeds at face value, right? You promote more accountability to the good deeds that people say they do in the name of religion. We think Mother Teresa was great, right? But we don't think she's a literal saint. She used unsterilized needles because she said that at the end of the day, I was doing God's work, right? We think what she did was overall good, but we can't just attribute all that benefit to her, literally call her a saint, without some form of accountability. We say right now, Christian evangelists in Africa can't go to just villages, give Bibles instead of helping people get access to water and say that is good because it's in the name of God. We think think we limit that by, again, limiting this exchange with God. We think the link here is that if we don't allow these people of the afterlife, we don't allow these people to make these sort of arguments whereby they say they're doing God's work, and second of all, we don't allow people to become complacent. Yes?
In a world we live, there is rape, racism, sexism, and so many problems. Clearly, people don't have abstract moral compass. Don't you think they need an extra push and an incentive to do something good?
Well, we think a lot of those problems are directly linked to this idea, right? We think that, for example, when you exclude a certain ethnic group from the idea of the afterlife, you say that by virtue of their birth, of like their ethnic background, by virtue of their religion itself, they don't have access to your belief of the afterlife. That is how you create some of those problems. We take away this incentive, we have religions take less control. I'll explain why right now. We claim the role of religion is significantly better on our side of the house. Why is this true? Number one, religion should be more removed from practical issues. We say religion should be overall more spiritual about their connection with the world, right? It should be not about the belief of an afterlife, which promotes this idea of exchange again, right? The exchange of actions or anything else with God's gifts in the afterlife. We tell you it should be less about having like a practical understanding of the world, more about the spiritual understanding of the world. It's less about seeing someone as bad because of the color of their skin or because they believe in a different God, more about seeing the good in people, overall the bigger picture. This links back because without the idea of the afterlife, this idea of exchange doesn't stand as well. A lot less people would be convinced without this tangible benefit of heaven, right? We think we make the concession that we will potentially have less religious people. We make the concession potentially less religious people that do good. But we tell you that one, our first argument still stands about what type of good we get. But B, people want to change the world even without religious systems, right? We think the biggest organizations in the world happen to help people not because of some religious motive. The Red Cross, Amnesty International, all the non-religious NGOs around the world are not motivated by the idea of the afterlife. Like these are people that like do good and have no connection with the afterlife. We think the afterlife is more easily used to radicalize people than it is to like help people just do plain good. Yes?
All beneficial organizations like the Red Cross would still exist even in the presence of religion. But the extra benefit about religious charities, those are exclusive to the existence of this belief. Why do you think that is not benefit that you want to be over?
Because we tell you we also bring specific harms, right? We bring people wasting resources on causes that they might think are good, but they're not actually providing as big of a benefit as these people are, right? We tell you that people also happen to like cause bad because of this grasp of religion, which I'll talk about right now. The exclusive harms here is essentially what happens with religion is that it's used to motivate a lot of people to do bad, right? We tell you religion has been used throughout the ages to like motivate people because of this exchange to do things like the Crusades, to do things like fundamentalism today. But it doesn't really matter if the cause behind those things is truly religious or not. It just matters that people are controlled through this belief of the afterlife, right? We think we have less religious attached to minorities, for example, because the person that shot up Pulse in Orlando wouldn't think that they would have gotten to the afterlife, to heaven, if they hadn't done that, right? We could say, second of all, the afterlife is often about rising closer to God, right? The traditional picture of clouds, ancient temples, and having philosophical conversation with God and his apostles, right? This is true in many religions around the world, right? We say in our world, people understand they're below God, but they don't have a right to push this sort of judgment on people, but they don't have a right to do all these things that are unique harms because of the belief of the afterlife. We beg you for a proposition.
We thank Demetrius for his speech, and we invite Patin to start the match for the opposition.
do poor people care why you're helping them? We don't think they do, ladies and gentlemen. So even if you're motivated by religion and you're donating to a charity, and that charity is putting food on the table for a poor person, that poor person will not care why you did that in the first place. The thing that poor person will care about is that he has food on the table. They never showed you as to why the intention of these good acts is important, so intrinsically important, that without them these acts are meaningless. Because we tell you they're not, and we think that these acts are good enough for society and are a benefit, right? But then let's talk about what exactly were their ideas, right? The first idea of liberation and how you want to do certain things and you can't do that, namely premarital sex. Understand, firstly, the idea of free choice. So it's still a free choice for you to be a part of a religion. No one is forcing you to be a part of a religion, right? So there are atheists within the status quo. You can choose not to be a part of the particular religion, right? But secondly, the idea of religion being more and more flexible. This is to say that religion in and of itself is evolving, right? So in Christianity, premarital sex is not that big of a problem now as it was before, right? This is to say that religion also evolves over time, right? But thirdly, the idea of a comparative, right? So if on a comparative, what is more important? Religion literally deterring you from killing an individual versus religion not allowing you to have premarital sex, right? You feel that comparative is simple. But the second idea of how you become complacent towards your own injustices. Firstly, we think that humans work on an instinct of self-preservation. This is to say that if you are being harmed, ladies and gentlemen, there is a capacity of pain that you can endure. People are not likely to accept their injustices. We feel that that is something that is unlikely to happen. But secondly, there is a difference between accepting your injustices as just and accepting your injustices and thinking that you need to move on. We feel that the religion provides you the latter. Religion allows you to accept that the fact that injustices have happened to you and allow you to move on from them, right? But thirdly, this idea of how Mother Teresa used unsterilized needles and religion actually excludes ethnic minorities and consequently incites violence against them. Firstly, the idea of Mother Teresa, these are harms that are inexclusive to religion, right? So a hospital that wants to cut down on costs can also use unsterilized needles. We don't see why that's exclusive harm, right? But second, because religion does not tell people to do this. But secondly, there are different interpretations of religion. So accountability still exists, ladies and gentlemen. And if someone has an interpretation that is actively harming someone else, there will be another interpretation that says that that is not right. So we don't understand how accountability does not exist. Having dealt with the positive case, we're talking about ethnic minorities within ours as well, right? But with that, let's move on to our positive case. We're talking about three things. Firstly, I'm talking about how belief in afterlife gives people hope and how that's important. Secondly, I'm talking about how religion establishes a moral code that is beneficial. And thirdly, I'm talking about how religion has an incentive to be more tolerant and exclusive of individuals. First idea. Belief in afterlife and the idea of a perpetual reward if you do good things makes individuals more hopeful of their own circumstances. This is to say that a lot of times people's circumstances are deplorable. No one lives a perfect life. There are downhills and there are uphills. In that context, in order to overcome the downhills, at times you need hope, ladies and gentlemen. This is to say that when you fail an important exam in the last year of university, you feel that you are likely to make impulsive decisions. For instance, if you are fired from your job and you don't know when you are going to get another job. For instance, if your wife leaves you and your household is falling apart, these are instances where people's rational self is compromised by their emotional self, right? This is to say that even if their rational self knows that these are temporary harms that can change, ladies and gentlemen, their emotional self compromises that rational self and they become more and more impulsive and are likely to make impulsive decisions, right? For instance, committing suicide. For instance, resorting to drugs and alcohol, right? In that context, people need hope. And you feel that the religion provides them with this hope, right? Because it provides them with the idea of a perpetual reward in the form of afterlife, in the form of heaven, ladies and gentlemen. We feel that this particular reward is particularly important because it tells people that what is happening to them right now is temporary and it can change, ladies and gentlemen. This allows people to accept the fact that an injustice has happened to them and they can move on from it and they should move on from it, right? It allows them to not dwell in that injustice. But secondly, oftentimes religion literally tells you to try to change your circumstances because that also rewards you in the form of heaven, right? We feel that because of that, our model is giving people more hope and consequently, they're likely to not commit suicide and not cause societal harm, which is in the form of drugs, etc., right? But secondly, the idea of how religion establishes a moral code and how that's beneficial. The concept of reward and punishment in heaven and hell is predicated upon the idea of good and bad things, ladies and gentlemen. Religion literally promotes things like charities, ladies and gentlemen. For instance, mosques in Pakistan, literally one in 5 mosques in Pakistan literally have their own charity that helps poor people, ladies and gentlemen. For instance, at times religions have orphanages and shelters that allow poor people to shelter in them and allow poor individuals with no parents to live there, ladies and gentlemen. Oftentimes, we feel that these religious organizations oftentimes do in fact do charity, right? For instance, the Love for God movement in Sri Lanka gave food to 27,000 individuals within Sri Lanka, right? Secondly, the Christian Aid is literally one of the biggest charities within the USA, and it is a religious charity, ladies and gentlemen. The idea here is that the religion inherently promotes helping other people. It promotes things like charity. It literally has zakat funds in the context of Islam, right? These are things that are awarded in the form of a perpetual bliss in the form of heaven, right? This incentive structure literally incentivizes people to do good in order to get a reward. Altruism and good deeds in most cases do not derive from your want to do good and the fact that you're a good person. In most cases, they derive from something else. For instance, in this case, it is an external authority and an external reward that you're getting in the form of heaven, right? Because these are things that are important for altruism to work. It can not only function on the idea of doing good for other people, right? The impact of this is, ladies and gentlemen, in the absence of such a narrative, in the absence of a belief in afterlife, people are unlikely to do these things, right? They are likely to be less charities within the status quo. People are less likely to help other people for their own reward, right? But second, because the religion literally deters people from committing crimes. Oftentimes, religion tells you treat other people as how you want to be treated yourself. We feel that religion literally deems murder and rape as unforgivable sins, ladies and gentlemen. In that particular context, it is literally deterring other people from committing crimes, right? So even if we consider the idea that there are people that are radicals and extremists, we feel that the moderates in the status quo are much more likely to be deterred from committing these crimes. We feel that on a numerical comparative, these people are more so, right? But the last idea of how religion has an incentive to be more tolerant. Religious values are oftentimes very, very tolerant and very, very exclusive, right? This is to say that religion is inherently tolerant and it has evolved within time. We feel that, for instance, when Pakistan accepts 11 million Muslim refugees just because they are Muslim, ladies and gentlemen, and tries to help them, that is something that we want, right? Because they want that brotherhood, right? Secondly, the idea of in the 19th century, literally Christian individuals literally campaigned to abolish slavery because they thought it was incompatible with Christian beliefs, ladies and gentlemen. The idea of Islam literally revolutionizing women rights within Arabia, when women were literally sold, ladies and gentlemen, and outlawing that kind of behavior, we feel that this is the type of progression that religion does in fact bring about within the status quo. We feel that these values are inherently inclusive of all individuals. Second, we feel that religious leaders have an active incentive to make sure that religion is more inclusive, because the popularity and acceptability of religion literally determines its success and growth. This is to say that more religion would always want more people to accept that religion. So religious leaders have an active incentive to not antagonize other people and to not make it inexclusive to other people, right? But secondly, the lifespan of religion is literally determined by how many people follow it in the long run. Consequently, religion has an active incentive to make sure it is suitable to the maximum amount of people, and consequently, it is likelier to be more inclusive. The impact of this is, since religion can literally mobilize individuals, it can literally shape mindsets and make people more inclusive of other people. For all those reasons, both side opposition.
We thank Patin for his speech, and we invite the second speaker of side proposition, Sia Bonga.
Let me take you through side opposition's context. In their world, what happens, ladies and gentlemen, is that people in the developed world are told that they have to accept their circumstance based off a reward they will receive after they die. Meaning that people are then disincentivized to get out of those circumstances because they are told that they would be rewarded for their suffering in the afterlife. It is this concept that forces individuals to settle for less and to sort of like accept the kind of conditions you put them in. We think that is necessarily bad because these individuals don't have an incentive to better themselves because simply of this like concept that you promote in religion. Now with that said, let's go into my rebuttal. And there are a couple of things that I want to deal with. And the first thing is that side opposition hasn't been like engaging the most. What they've been telling us throughout their speech, please sit down, what they've been telling us throughout their speech is that religion is good. We don't get a necessary like link to tell us why specifically the concept of afterlife is necessarily intrinsic to religion. They don't tell us why religion or the existence of religion is contingent on this principle or this concept. They don't tell us why the existence of this concept gives religions the powers to establish like good interaction with their participants. And we think that is necessary in today's debate because if we can prove to you that the concept of afterlife is not necessary to religion, and we get the benefits of having religious belief, we think that is necessarily good. Now, one thing, they don't tell us why this concept is vital to religions, and we think that is bad because without this idea of religion, we don't get the idea of why religions would necessarily collapse without this concept, and we think that is necessary for today's debate. But more importantly, they tell us this. They give us this whole absolute argument of religion being objectively good. They don't tell us why people individuals who believe in the afterlife, who don't necessarily believe in religion, why that idea to them is necessarily good. We think that is necessarily bad. But more importantly, let's actually talk about my first point of clash, and this is this whole idea of better for religions. So what did you get from our side of the house? We told you that death, we told you without this concept, death becomes a deadline for individuals. Why this is important is that we incentivize people to appreciate and live better lives to the fullest. We think that is comparatively better than on their side because individuals settle for their current circumstances in the hope that in the future or once they die they will receive a better life. We don't think that's necessarily good because currently those individuals still suffer. And we think that without this concept, these individuals necessarily have a reason to want to live a better life, and we think that is better. But more importantly, we say that this takes away complacency. And this is this whole idea of these individuals settling for less. But secondly, we tell you that doing good deeds become because they're actually now we tell you that now no sir. These individuals are doing these good deeds because they are necessarily interested in doing good deeds. We tell you that on their side, good deeds are self-serving and promotes the idea of an exchange. We tell you that this is necessarily bad because it's immoral because these individuals' motives for doing good are a lot less altruistic. These individuals do good not because they want to do good, they do good because they think they will be rewarded. That literally takes away the purpose of religion because you do good because you believe that doing good is good. So we tell you that the reward you sell to these individuals takes away that belief of and just generally doing good. And we think that that is bad. But more importantly, we tell you that you promote. They tell you that you promote a better religion. Yeah, we tell you that you promote a better religious motive for individuals. Without this, we tell you that we tell you take away the idea of a checklist for heaven. Individuals don't necessarily have to complete certain goals to go to heaven. Instead, they can actually be religious and actually engage with their religion without having without having to do specific things to engage with that religion. But before I go into my speech, yes sir.
What is more important? More poor people having food on their table or less food but the reason being some abstract moral?
But ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, we don't think poor people having food on their table is contingent on the idea of having an afterlife. We don't think people do good because they think they're going to be rewarded in the afterlife. They do good because they necessarily see an incentive to do good. We don't think that's your reason. We think that as my first speaker told you about the Red Cross Church, there are individuals in there doing good not because they believe in religion or necessarily engage with that religion. They do good because they think doing good is good. And with that said, I'll tell you how one will better conflict. Under here, please sit down. Under here, we tell you that conflict between different groups of people is significantly better when there's no belief in the afterlife. Why is this true? We tell you that it is far more easier to contrast the different end goals and afterlives of different religions than it is to contrast the idea of good actions and good deeds. This is because religious commandments about how people should act often involve the concept, whereas the narrative of the afterlife tends to differ significantly. But furthermore, since the afterlife is a vague concept in and of itself that can be easily manipulated, we tell you that we end up with misinterpretations of other concepts, and that serves to divide people. We think that it's bad. For example, how the misinterpretation of the Islamic after death, gives people the ability to go out and kill. We think that is necessarily bad. But more importantly, why is this important? A lot of the conflict we see between these groups in the world are based on or include religious differences. What does that mean? That means people are less likely to have conflict because these religions on our side, there's not, the things that separate religions are a lot less. We tell you that we acknowledge that cultural differences play a role in this conflict. However, they are far more or less integral to different religions, and thus you're far less likely to be able to convince people to have conflict based on the afterlife of religions. What we tell you now is that where you do have conflict, you do away with the notion of martyrdom. This means that less prolonged conflict, less complacency in oppression. This looks like killing themselves in the idea that in the name of religion, because they simply think that the belief that God would reward them for their suffering. We think that is bad because we take away that narrative. But more importantly, we tell you that we prefer conflict that can be resolved with less people dying because, and it's less shorter. And we tell you this links to the notion that this concept is, these results are a result of this concept. And with that said, we're very proud to propose.
Thanks, Yavonga, for his speech, and we invite Rapai to deliver the second opposition speech.
When we talk to you about harms like people becoming drug addicts and committing suicide because of the temporary pain they're going through, when we talk to you about that college kid who just failed an exam as if therefore acting non-rationally, we tell you it's criminal on them to not talk about that poor kid who will commit suicide under their model. But under our model, because he believes in a larger reward that will come later, because he believes that he can still make things happen because the hope that the afterlife gives him, he can still go on. The impacts are twofold. One, the individual will not be harmed, but two, the society will literally have less drug addicts and less people giving up and therefore more productivity. It's criminal that they didn't engage with it. It's an exclusive harm of religion, a benefit of religion, of afterlife that you cannot have otherwise. We tell you that's an issue we're already taking. But with that, let's more the two issues of this debate. One, where are individuals better off? Two, where is the societal life better off? But before that, let's deal with one concession that they make. They tell us that at proposition they're okay with the existence of religion without the existence of afterlife. That's a concession and a contradiction because all the harms that they pointed out have primarily been about religion. For instance, religious statues creating conflict. For instance, tolerance being decreased. For instance, premarital sex not being allowed. All these things will exist even if just religion exists under your model. Which is why them saying this is enough for them to lose this weight. But still, let's move on to two issues. Firstly, individuals. The only idea that they have over here is liberation and focusing on the right now and doing whatever you want. We tell you that there is a free choice involved, right? Which is to say, people who prioritize their liberation over religion can still do so. But there are people for whom religion and afterlife is necessary with its exclusive benefit. So we tell you your benefit is exclusive because of the existence of a free choice, and therefore liberation can happen under our model. But the second idea of evolution of religion. Notice how there was no engagement by that side. We told you that premarital sex was condemned more in the earlier ages, but now Christianity is more flexible towards it. Then Fatim gave you structural reasons as to why these things happen, because religion has an incentive to be more popular and be more acceptable. They haven't engaged with that idea, and therefore we tell you liberation is something that religion accounts for and therefore deal with. Third, this idea of how they talk about, well, death makes you anxious and you're always scared to die. We tell you religion promotes merciful when it tells you that God loves you 50 times more than your mother does. Religion promotes how forgiveness is a virtue and God will forgive you. Which is why even if you commit sins, that anxiety does not exist, and that's a flawed idea. But the last idea, even if you take the liberation argument at its best, it then becomes about a comparative about an 18-year-old wanting to have a marital sex. Is that more important, or a religion preventing you from murder, rape, and all those other crimes? We tell you on a comparative, most things that religion prevents you from are things that objectively should not be happening in society, and therefore we tell you liberation, etc. are not important enough. And notice how this was the only argument in individual's life that I've already broken on a comparative and shown to you why it doesn't even stand. But what were our argumentation in an individual's life? There are two. One, how it gives you hope, no engagement with that. They literally have people committing suicide on their side. So religion may not be the opium of the masses, but people will do opium now because they don't have religion. But secondly, this idea of morality. Because you have a moral code, you're more likely to be able to survive the circumstances that you're living in. For instance, in situations where you're emotionally thinking, you have to rely on a moral code instead of acting just pragmatically. A base moral code that you need, due to which an individual life is more regulated by religion. All these individual level benefits that they haven't dealt with, an individual life is clearly better off under opposition model. Let's go on the second issue of this faith. Under which model is the society better off? Okay, the first idea this brings to us is more good will be done because people don't depend on God to do good. The implication is people are complacent when religion exists. Capitalism is the thing that promotes most hard work. Where did capitalism came from? Calvinism. Where did Calvinism came from? Christianity. This literally shows to you that the idea of hard work and being rewarded for hard work comes from religion in and of itself, which is why we don't think what people will become complacent when they are religious. We think it's the exact opposite, they will work hard for it. But secondly, we tell you that even when they face bad circumstances, they don't accept it and become complacent. They see it as a God's trial. Seeing it as God's trial doesn't mean accepting it, but fighting it and rising above it, which is why they have an incentive to work hard. But thirdly, even if these things don't stand, we tell you human nature dictates them to not be complacent in any circumstances. So even if a poor person believes that his afterlife will be good, if he needs food right now, that human nature, it motivates him to work hard for it. But secondly, this idea of where is more charity happening? They think charity will happen more when there are abstract moral codes that people believe in, when there is no self-interest involved in doing good. We tell you let's have some real world analysis. You have rapes going on every other day. Sexism is on the rise. Racism is something you haven't been completely able to deal with, and that's the sort of human beings that we're dealing with. Considering that these are the sort of human beings and their characterization, we don't understand why they would do good just for the value of good under their model. We think they won't. But secondly, even if such people exist, it's a non-exclusive. They can exist under our model too. But people who do charity just because religion demands them to, because they think they'll be rewarded in the afterlife, is an exclusive benefit. So on a comparative, we're clearly showing you that charity is more under our model. To which they say, well, intention matters. We don't think intention matters over here, right? It's more important to help maximum number of people than to see why they're being helped. For instance, you give tax breaks to corporations that do charity or have church or give tax breaks to churches. That clearly shows you that you prioritize practical benefit over intentions, and therefore we tell you that's not a good enough reason. I showed you by this that more people will be working harder and more people will be doing more charity, and therefore more people will be helped. And therefore their premise doesn't stand. But our premise of tolerance and inclusivity, where Fatim gave the structural reasons for why this will happen. A, religion itself is tolerant towards people because of its values. Secondly, the idea of how for religion to survive through generations, it needs to be flexible and inculcate to the most amount of people as possible. Notice this is in direct clash with the second speaker argument about conflict, and therefore it was important to deal with. This shows you that religious popes, who are also democratically elected by the way, will now have an incentive to inculcate more people as opposed to antagonize them. Due to which we tell you that religion is something that can be mobilized, its positive aspects can be promoted to create corners towards people other than as opposed to the other way around, and that's why we take this society issue too. Lastly, the second speaker argument about conflict and misinterpretation. They're basically trying to say that Muslims are terrorists. Let's just say that once, but let's tell you why that's not true. One, how terrorism in most cases is politically motivated as opposed to religiously motivated. That's to say Islam has existed for 1600 years, but ISIS was only made when West intervened in Iraq. That is to say, in most cases, political motivation that's created through external circumstances of countries as opposed to religion. Secondly, even if we concede that it's because of religion, it's a minority case. There are 1.6 billion Muslims and only 3,000 ISIS troops as of now. We tell you such misinterpretations are a minority case which are an exclusive harm of religion. They can exist with any values that you have, with any culture that you have, if your argument is that it can be misinterpreted and skewed, and therefore conflict then step. With that, let's go on to my last line of argument, which is how it discourages vigilante justice. What sort of cases are we talking about? We're talking about injustices on an individual basis. But notice one more thing. We're talking about cases where you go to courts but are unable to get accountability for that injustice. So that's to say this is an inexclusive harm. In both models, if courts are bad, you won't get justice. But what's our comparative benefit? Our comparative benefit is once where the injustice has happened, under your model, people are likely to be spiteful and go for vengeance. Under our model, because they think that when there's an external authority that might hold their perpetrator accountable, it's more likely that after legal means of accountability have failed, they won't resort to vigilante justice, which is a great benefit of it. So at the end of the day, if you want people to move on from injustices, have hope in their life, and help more people, vote opposition.
We thank Rabbi for his speech, and to deliver the third proposition speech, we invite Anatoly to the stage.
On side opposition, when a young child is questioning their sexuality and their parents shut them down, the difference with our world is that the basis on which they shut them down is that you will go to hell, is that God will not give you a good afterlife in heaven. The difference here is that you have a much more oppressive belief that is much more easily imposed on people. They have failed to engage with the oppressiveness of this belief. They have failed to engage with the fact that it is much harder to escape beliefs of afterlife than regular religious beliefs when these beliefs are oppressive, right? This debate is not about capitalism and where it came from. It is not about weird comparatives of justice and injustice, which, by the way, was a 30-second constructive in their second speech. That's not okay. That being said, moving on, 3 points of clash. 1, what do good dudes look like on each side? 2, how do people's lives change? 3, minorities. So let's look at the first clash. We think they took quite an absolute burden here when they said that 1, without the afterlife, people wouldn't know not to rape, not to murder, not to steal, and 2, people wouldn't give to the poor. Now note, besides the fact that we can prove this not necessarily true, there is no way they can prove this absolute burden, right? We think this is poor strategy. But moving on, we think this argument is based on the premise of selfishness. And note, this was a complete assertion. They had to argue that people work like this, not just say say it. We completely challenge that premise. We tell you people are inherently altruistic, right? When we see suffering, it's our instinct to help. I'm sure a lot of people here don't believe in the afterlife, yet when they see poor people on the street, they feel compassion for these people, right? Now the problem that we told you in first is that people then can be manipulated by religions and their vague notions of good that are inherently tied to the afterlife, right? They missed the point when they told us that intention doesn't matter in charity, because our point was never about intention. It was about going to a village in Africa and instead of actually helping the people, giving them Bibles, getting volunteers, wasting resources, doing things that are based around a vague notion of this is good, you're doing God's work. This is far less accountability on their side of the house, at the point at which you don't have to stop and think about the consequences. You don't challenge what religious leaders tell you. People are much more easily manipulated with this belief. They gave us a bunch of, religious charities that are good. We tell you we can also give you a bunch of secular charities that are good, right? There is no reason why we can't just replace those. I'll take your point.
Secular charities can exist under our model. Show to us without a belief in afterlife and a belief in being rewarded for charity, religious charities can exist in yours.
We told you that people care about people's suffering regardless of whether we have charity, but also that religious charity tends to be worse because it tends to be less accountable, care less about outcome, care more about the justification of doing God's will, right? So we think we get better good deeds on our side. Moving on, how do people's lives change? We told you about how when the belief of an afterlife is imposed on you since birth, you're stopped from doing what you want to do, right? You don't live life to your fullest. Furthermore, you do things like maybe not appreciate your parents while they're there because you say, oh, I'll see them in heaven. You do things like you're scared of living true to yourself, true to your sexuality. What they told us here was, moral codes are always good, right? Please tell us why, being kosher is an absolute moral good. Why, men and women of a specific religion having to dress a certain way is an absolute moral good. Why separating genders is an absolute moral good. We don't understand why, when it comes to actual absolute moral goods that religions propose, right? Do not rape, do not murder, do not steal. We can't just have laws to stop these things. If people are as bad as they tell you, why can we not just use the deterrence of punishment in societies rather than the idea of the afterlife that comes with so much baggage, right? That oppresses so much people on the side. We don't understand. I'll take another point.
Police can only deter you when the police is there to watch you committing a crime. Considering that these people believe that God is always watching them, don't you think it's a better sort of deterrence?
Okay, we think the people that you're talking about, people who haven't internalized society's laws about murder, are people who probably wouldn't internalize the afterlife's rules about murder, right? I think you're characterizing people as sort of sociopaths in a way, and we think those people wouldn't necessarily buy into moral codes in the afterlife either. We don't understand your point. And then they told us about drug addicts, right? And how they have hope and forgiveness on their side, and how people will do opium if there is no belief in the afterlife. We tell you, first, atheism has been hugely on the rise, right? We don't think opium has been hugely on the rise. No correlation here. We tell you, you probably know lots of atheists yourself, right? These are people who do find solace in things like, music, art, people who love. We don't think you need a belief in an afterlife for hope and forgiveness. But more importantly, they're missing the point here because they're arguing in favor of religion, right? Not in favor of the afterlife. We tell you that a person's spiritual relationship with God, a belief in a higher power, knowing that that higher power is there to protect them without all the baggage that comes with the afterlife, can still give people hope, can still let people forgive themselves, right? But even if all this wasn't true, ultimately, on the comparative, we prefer people taking responsibility for their lives, right? We don't think that, as they say in their words, accepting injustice is a good thing. We don't think saying, oh, it's fine, God will deal with it, is a good thing. We think the real comparative here isn't the man whose wife left him and does drugs because they have no belief in the afterlife. We think the real comparative here is saying, all these terrible things are happening to me, but I'm not going to do anything about it because God will watch out for me, because heaven will be better, right? On our side of the house, you're far more likely to incentivize people to take responsibility, to change their lives. We think ultimately, without the afterlife, people will be far better off. Now let's look lastly at this last clash on minorities. So they told us here about tolerance. They gave us 3 points here. 1, religions evolve. 2, Pakistan took in 11 million Muslim refugees. 3, religions have an incentive to appeal to the maximum number of people possible, right? Note this was the extent of their analysis. They never told us why any of these things are necessarily true, so let's take them down. Sure, religions can evolve, but they evolve much slower than societal norms, right? We think we don't want to wait for every single church to accept gay people. Currently, it's a tiny minority. You can't just argue based on that minority. We prefer a world with fast change, and we think we believe in the afterlife slows that change. 2, sure, Pakistan took in 11 million Muslim refugees, but what about Europe? What about the Islamophobia that is on the rise because of the separation that because of the conflict that afterlife creates in these religions? We analyzed this in our second speaker. We told you that religions tend to differ more based on their afterlife than based on any other moral codes. So to create far more of a contrast, we think this is largely why there is so much hate between different religions. 3, we don't think religions have the incentive to appeal to the maximum number of people, because realistically, no religion wants to, absorb every single human. We think they want to appeal to people who they can manipulate more easily, to people who can have much more power, so they're probably fine with not appealing to a bunch of gay people, right? So this isn't an incentive that stands on their side. We told you about conflict, and note, they completely misrepresented our point. This wasn't about terrorism, right? This was about religious minorities being led to martyrdom because they think that they're suffering for God. We think this is absolutely abhorrent. We don't think people should be lighting themselves on fire for God to reward them. We are very proud to propose.
We thank Anatoly for her speech and invite Omer to the stage to deliver the third speech of side opposition.
We find it to be problematic when side proposition comes up here and says that okay, if religion has so many benefits, we can still have religion without a belief in afterlife. But notice, the harms that they pointed out were exclusive to the existence of a belief in afterlife. Harms like no accountability measure, i.e. you being able to self-actualize. These harms are exclusive to you thinking that if you do go against religion, you will be punished, i.e. not get into afterlife. This tells you that according to your logic, the harms that you pointed out are exclusive to the existence of afterlife. This means that if religion exists according to your logic, these harms are still likely, or these harms are likely to exist. But what are the benefits we're talking about? These benefits we're talking about are exclusive to the existence of afterlife, right? So we tell you benefits like benefits like you getting hope, benefits like you getting hope, benefits like you wanting to actively help people, and benefits like you actively wanting to do charity. These are exclusive to the existence of afterlife. However, the harms that they pointed out they can exist even if religion is only existed, right? I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. They can exist even if only religion is existed, and even if the belief belief in afterlife doesn't exist, if religion exists, those harms that you are talking about are likely to exist, but our benefits are exclusive to the existence of the afterlife. And with that, I'm going to, before I move on to the two issues of this debate, let's talk about the burden that was on. So they're talking about how we have an absolute burden to prove how rapists and people who kill other people are only don't do so because they believe that religion doesn't allow them to do this. We tell you that our burden is only to prove a comparative benefit, i.e. less people are likely to commit such crimes, i.e. even if we concede that some people are motivated by other things, some people exist that are motivated by religion not to commit crimes, i.e. comparative benefits still exist. But notice, when they're talking about how they're talking about ideas like liberation and ideas like liberation, i.e. in the non-existence of religion, you are likely to self-actualize. They concede that religion has an active impact on your actions, right? They concede that if religion says to do something or to not to do something, that has an active impact on the decisions you make. I.e. they concede that if religion tells you not to rape or not to kill, that has an active impact on you making that decision not to do so. I.e. the benefit we're talking about is exclusive to the existence of religion and the existence of afterlife. And with that, we're going to move on to two issues on this debate, right? The first issue, whether or in which model is society better off, and the second issue, this issue about religious minorities and extremism. Moving on to the first issue, the issue about the society, which model is society better off. So they're talking about how deterrence can still exist by laws of society and don't necessarily have to be as a result of religion. We tell you deterrence can exist as a law, deterrence is unlikely to exist as much with laws of society for two reasons. In the laws of society, the deterrence is only that if you do a particular crime, you will be harmed. But in the case of religion, in the case of afterlife, the deterrence is if you don't do a particular harm, you will be benefited, right? This tells you that the idea of you being benefited by not doing a certain crime is exclusive to the idea of religion, i.e. is much likely to be more deterrent. Secondly, the idea of you being held accountable. So the accountability or deterrence of a person is based on the likelihood of him being caught. According in your model, when the only deterrence is based on laws, since you aren't likely to be held accountable because no police officer or the government is not always watching over you, you are much more likely to commit those crimes because you think that you aren't likely to be held accountable. But in the event that you believe in a deity that will always watch over you and is likely to factor into whether or not you get into the afterlife, this is likely to be a bigger deterrent because you know, regardless of whether or not you commit a crime, you will be held accountable, and i.e. deterrence exists much better in our model. Second idea, about how atheism is already currently on the rise and all of the harms we talk about don't exist. We tell you the harms we talk about can be seen in the status quo, i.e. rise in suicide rates, i.e. rise in drug consumption. This is directly linked to the rise of atheism. Because the harms we talk about harms of hope not existing, the harms of people going through depression, or the harms of people simply quitting on life, all of these harms can be seen as linked with the rise of atheism, i.e. the harms we talk about exist. But third idea, the idea about how when people question their sexuality, religion tells them no, you cannot do that. We tell you that religion is currently seen as very progressive, right? So for example, Pope Francis has already stated that he supports gay rights. This tells you that religion is inherently flexible. As time evolves, religion too can evolve in order to what encompasses inside that religion. This tells you that the harms that pointed out about you not being accepted because of your sexuality in religion or you not being allowed to actualize yourself are unlikely to be true because of the idea of flexibility between religion. And this is already seen by the example of Pope Francis we gave you, i.e. him accepting gay rights, him saying that gay people can also be a part of Christianity. This tells you that there is no abstract harm, right? The second idea about how people only do benefit because they want to do benefit, right? So they came up here and said, okay, it's human nature to be altruistic and compassionate, i.e. the benefits of charity will exist. We don't think that's true. Because even if we concede a certain strata of society is altruistic and wants to be compassionate, i.e. is likely to donate, there is a certain strata of society that doesn't have this, that needs an extra push to donate, that doesn't necessarily want to be altruistic or doesn't necessarily want to be compassionate, but still wants personal benefit. So that strata of society is likely to be motivated in the existence of an afterlife, right? Because they feel that even if they aren't altruistic or even if they aren't really compassionate, they are still want to donate because they know that if they do so, they are likely to get a personal benefit. Secondly, linked to this, we talk about the intentions behind this benefit. We tell you, even if you don't actually intend to benefit that person, and even if you are doing it for your own self-benefit, we tell you this general societal benefit outweighs any abstract idea about intention, right? So for example, you give tax cuts to people who actively donate to charities. This tells you that you obviously prioritize the actual benefit to people on the ground, actual benefit to people on the poor people over an abstract idea about who donates. Third idea, the idea about religion charities wasting resources because they only donate things like Bibles. We don't think that's true because obviously you saving a particular person's life by actively giving him food gives you more reward even in accordance to religion than you giving him a Bible. I.e., people have an active incentive to not to religious charities have an active incentive not to donate Bibles, but rather actual things that will benefit poor people. I.e., things like food, right? This tells you that it's very likely that even religious charities are unlikely to waste resources and charity is likely to increase. The last idea, the idea about terrorism and the idea about religious minorities pregnancy. Right? We tell you the idea about terrorism is very unlikely, much more likely in your model because recruitment is likely to increase in your model. Because people are likely to be extremists because they don't have a deterrent against it. Right? In the current scenario, people who feel disenfranchised from society are still likely not to join things like terrorism because they feel that is what God doesn't intend for them to do so. I.e., terrorism is likely to have lower recruitment in the current scenario. But in your model, it's likely to increase because they have no deterrents against it. And for all those reasons, we tell you, opposition exists.
We thank Umar for his speech, and to finalize this debate for the side opposition, we call Rafael on stage.
They lost this debate not because of something we said, but because of something they said. Religion can exist without afterlife, and that is something we support. We tell you that the harms they point out will exist if they support that stuff. Let's analyze how. 1. Homosexuals being condemned. If you believe in a spiritual connection still existing and religion still existing, and then give us analysis for why religion is conservative and it comes from old times and therefore doesn't accept homosexuality, we tell you if you support those values still existing, that spiritual connection still existing, it will still dictate homosexuality being condemned. So all the harms you talk about will exist under your model, about religion being oppressive in that sense. Same is the case with conflict. If someone belongs to one religion and the other one belongs to other, your argumentation then exists. The harms of your argumentation exists under your model, where religion exists without an afterlife. This shows to you that the moment they supported religion with an absence of afterlife, they supported all the harms they had pointed out. Therefore, as team proposition, they haven't shown us a significant harm in society or a need in society for the absence of afterlife and not religion itself. But what were our benefits and how they were exclusive to afterlife? These benefits were things like hope, charity, and moral code. Notice that they are contingent on you being rewarded for the charity in the afterlife. They are contingent on you having a hope of a better life in the afterlife. So the benefits they will give to you are exclusive to afterlife. The harms they give to you are exclusive to religion and therefore will exist under their model. They deserve to lose this debate right there and then. Having said that, let's deal with the two issues of this debate. The oppressiveness of religion and its impacts to the idea of charity and societal benefit. So oppressiveness at an individual level. Over here we tell you that religion evolves and is flexible because it wants to inculcate as many people as possible. The only response to that came in third proposition, which was it is slow as compared to societal norms changing. They gave you no reason why societal norms change faster than religion, that change the religion rate. I'll give you reasons for why that's not true. People in society have no incentive to change because they have political and self-interest in mind. That is to say, white men have no incentive to give black people rights, they just want to have a wage gap and earn more. Similar to the case with man and woman analogy, right? Men have no incentive to give women rights if they can benefit from having more rights. This shows you that there are reasons to believe that societal change is likely to not come and slow. But notice how they didn't deal with our best case. Religious change is going to be faster